Well, hello, everybody, and welcome. Thank you very much for taking some time out of your Monday night, whatever it happened to be doing, whether it's watching Kansas City beat up on Baltimore or whether it's you stuck around after Alan Berg's awesome seminar. Maybe you got like 8 things going on at once, a couple monitors, a phone, a tablet, and you're all watching us in multiple ways. Whatever happens to be the case, thank you for taking some time. I'm telling you tonight is going to be one of those things that if you've not needed this topic yet, if you have not yet been prepared for this, this is something you want to tuck in your back pocket, just in case.
And I think this is a topic that a lot of DJs are running into for a variety of reasons, and even more this year than in the past. The topic we're talking about basically is how do you handle criticism, the online criticism that you may get, or bad negative reviews. And that's the side I think that a lot of DJs are surprising they're finding out, because events have been canceled, events have been postponed. DJs have been like, I can't afford to give the retainers back, or I'm not going to give the retainers back, whatever their story is. And the amount of online bashing and damage that has happened to businesses has really, I think, in some cases, surprised DJs that, oh my gosh, these people did what to me? Mm-hmm. So it's out there, and it's out there, unfortunately, in a pretty big way right now.
Yeah, it's just one of those things where, I mean, and we could take it from that standpoint, but you can also look at it just, somebody has an off day. Maybe not even you. Like maybe it's not anything that you do necessarily, but something that you kind of take the misdirection for. You know, we think about this when you're at an event, all right, and you're doing your typical thing, all right, and something happens. Like let's assume for a second somebody wants to know where the bathrooms are. Who do they come ask?
Yeah.
You know, and it's like I don't own the venue. I may have come here a couple times. Yeah, I probably know where it is. I'm going to help you out. I'm not going to be a jerk, but they're going to look towards you. So a lot of times we end up getting flack, or we end up getting, you know, something looked at just because we're the person that's front and center. You know, outside the couple, you know, we're probably going to be one of the people that, you know, get seen quickly because of what we do.
Oh yeah, the number of times you're walking through the audience during the dinner time and somebody's like, "Can you get me some salt and pepper?" As I'm carrying a microphone to the head table. Sure, I'm right on it. You know, that becomes part of what we do, or we're expected. Or I don't know how you'd say that, but yeah, and how we react to situations like that, and then how they perceive us through that situation can lead to some of the on-site criticisms or misunderstandings, maybe. Yeah.
And I think that's some of what we're talking here. We're not talking about the fact that you're horrible and you did a completely incompetent job and you deserve to be bashed 100%, but rather kind of the flip side, where you're taking the brunt of it, or you're taking the misdirection or the misunderstanding, and it's unfair, you know, or at least potentially unfair that you should have that review. But to go at a couple that comes to you and says, that's just not fair, not gonna work quite that well.
Yeah, not so much, and how you handle those. So let's handle more of the. Let's start with the ones where it's more of an in-person thing, whether it's something that somebody is making a comment about your music that you're playing, or they have they're making a request for something, whether it's music related or not, and there's this moment of disgust on their part, frustration on their part that's aimed at, and you get hit. How do you handle things when you have a face-to-face situation like that?
Well, I'm a big, bold guy, so usually I don't get too many of the face-to-face ones. No, in all seriousness, when those types of things come at me, or couples come up and you know, they're just complaining about something. One of the tricks that I learned when I worked at a hotel is to always respond with empathy. All right, don't respond with sympathy unless you really truly have been in that position. you don't know that what they're dealing with. And so to say, to say that it just doesn't go over well. So the first thing is to respond with empathy. I understand, if I'm hearing you correct, I understand that you're having an issue with things. You know, and then go into some conversation with them, assuming that they're of a level-headed moment that you can have that, to kind of diffuse it. Maybe they're not happy with the style of music, and so I'm sorry that you're not liking what's being played right now. This was a request by somebody else. I'd love to get a request on for you. What is something that you would like to hear instead? What is something that you're wishing to enjoy for this evening? The downside is they might be coming back with something that's completely on a bride and groom's do not playlist.
Yeah.
And so I have a viewpoint on that. I know other people have a different viewpoint, but mine is if it's on a bride and groom do not play, I take the brunt of this. I often say I don't have it with me tonight. I have a computer in front of me. Like the average person, that's not drunk usually understands what that means. But you do have occasional ones that go, "You're a DJ. How do you not have that?" Mm-hmm. And I usually say it again. I don't have that with me tonight. Oh, something else we can play for you. Something else that maybe will get you up and moving. And a lot of times that's a good diffusing type of situation. And what I really like to try and do, unless they're really heated, and rarely do I have that from somebody who's not just completely drunk,
right?
Is to try and throw in some sort of a humor, something to get them laughing. Because if I can get somebody laughing in front of me, even just smiling, smirking, whatever happens to be the case, if I can get them laughing, it diffuses things almost immediately. Mm-hmm. It gets them on your side, and they realize you're not this guy who's trying to create a bad situation or a bad night for them. You're just doing something. And now that you're joking with them and having some fun, okay, now let's talk. Let's come to a compromise.
And that the situations where you feel like you maybe need to try to compromise a little bit generally are, for those of you, if you haven't done a ton of weddings, is there's times where you'll have the bride and groom expectations of what they want to have done. And then you'll have that slightly intoxicated person who comes up and says, "This is something we do at everybody's wedding, everyone in the family's wedding. And we got to go and do this. And we're going to drop our pants to our ankles and dance to Piano Man." And okay, so that's not what the bride and groom wanted. Now, how am I going to deal with this? Because I'm going to have somebody who's very upset because everybody does it in that world.
Yeah. Well, I always love it. Sidebar to that. I always love when it's everybody does this, or we always do it at all these weddings. And I'm going, then why, when I asked, is there anything else that we need to consider doing at their event? They didn't even think about bringing it up.
Yeah, it didn't make the list at all.
But I do find it funny. You with the exception of the song, you hit a tradition that I had at a wedding 2 years ago.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
Go out, drop the pants. I'm like, but the groom did warn me about that one. They're like, yeah, we don't want to do that. Mom's in the audience. That's a different story for another time.
Yes, when my would be my cousin did that at his wedding, and my grandma, she had no idea that it was coming, and you heard the little old lady whoop in the back of the room when they dropped her. It was like, oh my God, that was very funny.
Oh my goodness!
Part the harmonica, part the piano. No, Jimmy, people don't really. No, they won't do that. So handling people, as you say, humor's good when you're doing the face-to-face thing. That trying to be empathetic, being in essence on their side, or basically the virtual hand on the shoulder and trying to in essence see it from their side and be on their team to try to help them have success. I think that's probably the best avenue to kind of take it from that aspect, because anything that will come across as adversarial is going to get this escalated to a point where no one's going to win.
Right.
Not at all.
And the last thing you want to do is create a scene, or be the part of a scene. You don't necessarily create it, but you're a part of it because, it did get escalated. You don't want to lie to them per se, but you don't want to create a problem for them, and you don't want to create a problem for your client, because if you put blame on them or you try and direct it to them, and especially if it's somebody who's somewhat intoxicated, they're immediately going to go up. And at that point, now your couple or your client is agreeing to anything just because they don't want They don't want that scene at their
Right,
wedding. They, you
yes.
know, and they have a little bit, I don't want to say less stock in it, but they're, you know, when it's coming to them, they're just going to back down because they don't really want it, but I really don't have to deal with it. And then you also look like the bad guy because you just told them no, and guess what? You sent them to them to have them get drunk in their face.
And I think when you get in the couples situation, they're looking at it as, okay, so what's going to diffuse this the best? Yeah, I really don't want this song, but this person's, Uncle Marty's really drunk. And if I tell Uncle Marty no, he may say okay, or he may just be the obnoxious drunk guy for a while. So if we basically go and tell the DJ to do it, whatever the situation is, we might be able to just get it done with. It's going to be uncomfortable for the 5 minutes, but we can get done with it. And I think that happens a lot, unfortunately, when we turn it back to and say, well, if the bride and groom approve it, I can do it type of situation, that they don't want it. And yet, because of them seeing that as the easiest way to get to deal with Uncle Marty.
I think it's also important, and this goes more with the request side than it does the review side. But you know, to find out when you have a do not play, are these legitimately do not plays, or are these we would like you not to play? But if somebody requested, it's okay.
So you're saying different levels of do not play.
Yeah, exactly.
I for sure
So
do not
and that,
play. Prefer not to play. The song sucks, but if it's played, I'm not going to kill anybody. And if it's played, I'm just going to have an unhappy face for 30 seconds. The progression.
exactly
The progression.
exactly.
Of course,
I feel like a bride's done that to you twice.
Huey's on the other side of it, where you've got to play it all the time.
Or you use it for packing material.
There is that. Actually, no, I didn't bring the tapes over to see if there is some. After somebody brought it up, it's like, huh, I don't know if there is any Huey in that box.
For those of you not knowing the inside joke, John is making packing material with old tapes.
Yeah,
And we're pretty sure a Huey's in there somewhere.
Yeah, I've been working on one of our original DJ storage sheds. So there are things that have been in there since probably 92, somewhere in that ballpark. There are some early speakers, early lights that we purchased. In a couple of cases, I bought them used and I never used them. And they have been in that shed for 20 years, 25 years. So they're there. But in one box, the totes was a box of cassettes, and there's cassette singles in there and different things. But yeah, I don't know if I have. I don't think I ever bought. I think sports might have been one of them that I went and spent like $30 on it as a CD. I want to say. I don't know. I'll have to, if I see it. I mean, if it's there, that would be the spot that it would be in. So tomorrow's journey. Anyway,
So, go ahead.
yeah, I was going to say let's kind of switch now to, you know, we've talked about kind of the criticism or what have you we're getting at an event. Let's kind of change that to the post event where we're seeing a review, whether it's a comment. I've seen it where DJs have put up a picture from, you know, Bill and Melissa's wedding, and a guest who is unhappy with you posts a snarky remark. Sometimes there's different reviews on Wedding Wire than not. Somewhere we'll post something snarky. There's all sorts of weird places that people can make put reviews out there. How do you handle those situations where somebody has come out and said that you did something, or they perceive something had happened, whether it's right or wrong? How does a person move forward from something like that?
Well, first off, the first suggestion I would make for you is this: get out a piece of paper, get out a pencil, pen, whatever you want to do. Write down your response immediately. As soon as you're reading that, get the paper, get the pencil. Notice I said not your phone, not your computer, paper and pencil. Write it down. Write it all out. Get all of it down. Then take that paper and throw it in the trash, because you're never going to send that if you want to work again. I think it's so funny because when we started talking about this topic, I didn't realize Alan was going to be on before us, and a lot of the ideas that I have and tips that I have for tonight are going to come from Alan in seminars that I've seen with him. He does a fantastic job talking about how to respond to reviews and how to handle it. And that's one of the things he says. He's like, you know, take whatever you were going to send, whatever you thought you were going to do, put it on a piece of paper, and then throw it away, because there's no way that you are going to come out ahead by doing that. And so I think it's always important for you to take a good 24 hours just to kind of let the air breathe, let yourself calm down, and maybe not 24 hours, but definitely a couple of hours to kind of get your head in the right spot. And don't stew on it, because that's only going to be kind of that same thing. That's the whole purpose of writing it down on that paper, to get those emotions out. And then draft something up that you actually want to do, not on that post, but on another spot, and give it to somebody that you trust, somebody that you believe will take and read your words and read what you're doing and be honest enough with you to have that, so that when you do post this, if you post it, it'll be in the right voice. All right. Because again, you could write something and it could have the best intentions, but if it's not read by somebody else, you might come across sarcastic. You might come across with a tone in your text that you don't think is there, because you think you're actually being polite, and you're not as polite as you might think.
For sure.
So I definitely would say that. There's a couple of things that I'm seeing in the chat, and I would definitely, nothing against Jimmy, I love you, buddy, but delete it and block them is absolutely possibly the worst case scenario that I could say. Now, if you got something slanderous or something like that, that's a different story. But by blocking, by deleting, what you're doing is you are adding more fuel to the fire. You're adding potentially more fuel to the fire. So if somebody comes along and says, this happened or this happened, and then you delete it, then it's suddenly like, oh, now I'm thinking there's even more to the fuel to the fire. And I even saw this happen with a local DJ, where he did something just like that. And then what ended up happening? They got all their friends. And this wasn't coming from a couple. This was somebody that was at the event. They got all their friends and they started slamming post after post after post, and just blew his Facebook wall up with these different reviews, to the point that he ended up turning the review feature of his Facebook off because it looked so hideous. He went from having a 4 or 5, he went down to having like a 1 or 2, just by these actions of this group of friends. So, I would highly, highly recommend that you do not get into that. A well-worded response is going to be the best course of action. Plus, you don't have control over all of your deletions. You probably have control over your own social media pages, but we talked about John, you mentioned the Wedding Wire, you mentioned the Knot.
Yeah.
There's Yelp. There's a multitude of third-party places that you don't have control over, that if they want to post it, they're going to post it. Maybe even their own Facebook wall that you happen to see. Not much you can do. So how you respond is going to be key here.
And I think, especially if you do delete it and dump it, and they don't feel that they have had a voice, then for sure it's going to be on their Facebook wall. It's going to be in places that you cannot, and it's going to become that vendetta. No question about it. No question about it.
Yeah.
How do you respond?
So how do you respond? Again, very similar to the in-person one. You've got to have some empathy going on. First off, put yourself in the place where their critique is happening. A lot of times we come off of an event and we're on some sort of a high because of how well it went. And then we read that and we're like, how could that even, were they at the event I was at? Like, it was perfect. It was like
the hook.
9 out of 10. Everything went the way it was supposed to. How could they have that thought? All right. Stop yourself. All right. Get off your high horse for a second. Put yourself in their position and go, could what they have been seeing, could their impression be legitimate? Like, could something have happened with it that I'm just not thinking about? And if the answer is in any way, shape, or form, yes, then you need to respond with empathy, and basically come alongside them, and just like in person. And, I understand, this is the way you feel. Unfortunately, at the moment, I was not seeing what you were seeing. As I look back, I could see where what was done may have been construed that way. Please accept my apologies. It was not my intention to create anything negative out of the night. All right. That's a very vague type of response. And obviously you could funnel something a lot more clear. It's kind of thinking off the top of my head here. Right. But adding that empathy, adding that moment to come alongside them and just basically, take ownership for what they experienced. A lot of times when people make that type of a critique, especially if it's somebody at the event and not somebody that's been in charge of the event, like a client or a couple or things like that, they just kind of want you to know, or and if it's a little snarky, they want you to take ownership for it. And if it's something completely out of control, out of your control, I'm sorry you felt that way. I really wish I could have done something. Unfortunately, those were elements that were not part of anything I had control of that night. And so, I wish you the best, but unfortunately there was nothing I could have done at that moment. All right. And that one, unfortunately, you're not taking the blame. All right. So it might not appease them, but in the same respect, it does recognize that you understood that it happened. And if you could have done something, you would have done something.
Yes.
Yeah.
And sometimes that we didn't take the actions that they were wanting is because maybe they didn't communicate what the problem was, or the problem that they perceived was in direct violation of what the bride and groom were wanting to have happen. So the two things were completely different. We might be taking heat for a decision the venue made, or the photographer is scheduling, whatever. There's just so many variables. To go and start pointing fingers, though, is the part. I don't think pointing fingers say, well, the venue is the one that you should be mad at, not me, because, no, you don't want to be pointing fingers.
No. The last thing you need to do is to flat out blame somebody else. If it is completely out of your control, don't tell them whose control it is. Just, I'm sorry. Unfortunately, that was something I did not have any handle on. I did not have any hand in. I was not able to be a part of it, and I apologize. I wish I could have done something for you, but at the moment I didn't know it, nor could I have done anything, nor can I do anything post, because I was not a part of it. And so, again, you got to realize by that point, the nice thing about this version versus the other one is most likely by the time they do get your response, they're not drunk. They're not intoxicated like they may have been in the moment that made them mad in the first place. One thing I would also say as we talk about this, a way to help, especially those third party places for review. One of the best things that you can do is to actually request and solicit reviews from your clients. Get them talking about you in these places. So that two different things. One is when they make that review, all right, and you get the good ones, comment, thank them. Bring up a memory that they didn't think about during their review and add it to it. Thank you so much, Bobby and Susie. It was so great being a part of your day. I really couldn't believe that Grandma got out there and she did the wobble right next to all the bridesmaids. That was the best. I've never seen a grandmother dance like that. Whatever. Okay. Pull whatever out that you want, but to make that moment, because the thing that will happen from that is now guests that come know that you're seeing those reviews. You're making a point to comment your physical presence. And what ends up happening is it kind of takes away the I'm standing behind a keyboard, you can't touch me type of idea, because they know that you're looking at it and you're going to respond in some form or fashion to it. This isn't, I get to leave this and let him get slandered and he's never going to know about it. No, like you're responding to it, and you respond to the positive ones, you respond to the negative ones, however that might happen. The second thing is, by having a presence in these places, when they do leave a negative, it's not the only thing that's there. All right. So when somebody does do a search for you on whatever there happened to be their favorite review site, you get a whole bunch of positives, and maybe you get one negative, but you get a whole bunch of positives. Whereas if you're not soliciting for these sites, the only thing they're going to find is that one negative, and that could, or multiple negatives, depending on what may have happened. And so that it's going to help balance. Also, think about your buying experiences. When you are doing this, when you're going out and you're buying an item, anything, Walmart, Amazon, find it online of some sort, and you're looking at the reviews. Do you trust a 5-star more than you do a 4.8? Really? Because in my viewpoint, it's actually more the other way around. Because I feel like when I see a 4.8, okay, this is a little more realistic. Like seriously, I've got 100 reviews and they're 5s. Like, and especially because you hear different things like people buy reviews. Okay. And I'm not talking about necessarily our services, although I'm sure there are that do that too. But I'm just talking about products. So having a negative is not the end of the world. If anything, it helps. And if a client sees how you respond to that in a professional, courteous, friendly manner, they're going to have potentially an even higher opinion of you.
Right.
Because, they're not perfect, but they recognized it. And they also know that, all right, I can do something about this so that the next time it doesn't happen. And that next time might be at my event. So, hey, that's a great thing for me.
For sure. And I think, the review thing, the percentages or the 4.8 and the 5 is certainly huge. The area though, I think we get hung up so much is that 4-star review or the 3-star review or the 1-star review. When you have all those other positive reviews and you've had all those other, it's like you let that one little thing, and it might be something that somebody canceled and they wanted their deposit back, and that give you dumping on you as your whatever. It's like those things happen, and Scott mentioned it right at the beginning of the show that he doesn't let those things in essence get under his skin. Yes, there's times we've got to have that thick skin and just say, you know what, I'm sorry you feel that way, and move on and let those positive reviews speak for themselves.
Absolutely. Now, here's one question that I would have for you, John, because this was kind of a thought that was thrown through my mind. So for a while, you had your multi-op.
Yep.
And how did you handle, or how would you have handled if this never happened, a review or a critique when it was for one of your guys or one of your girls? So one of you weren't there, you weren't personally involved. How did you respond?
Sure.
To those moments?
Well, at that time, the internet was not a thing.
Dial up and
yeah, exactly. So that
really
wasn't much of an issue. But you did have the situations where, sometime Sunday, most likely Monday, we'd get a call and say, hey, this happened at our wedding, and we're just really not happy that your DJ didn't have our song, played the wrong version, or called somebody by the wrong, whatever it happened to be, and things happened. I don't remember specifics anymore because it's been a long time. It was one of those things that on our be fixed looked at what we just started to.
Is that you or me?
I want to see if it's showing up on my. If it's something coming out of our side here. Because Wirecast is showing there. That looks like it's coming back. I don't understand. Well, we've got a good signal there, it's saying, and we're being doggy again.
No, I think we're still. I paused YouTube thinking it was my end.
No, I think it's.
No, I think we're still going.
Yeah, I think we're still there. I can see on Wirecast it shows the little green thing for broadcasting, and it looks like we're back to green, and we're not dropping frames, so I don't understand it. It makes no sense at all. That's why at times it makes you wonder if Restream is having issues, because it's talking about a keyframe.
Or Zoom, because you were choppy on my end.
Yeah, so it's got to be an internet connection. It must have been a hiccup somewhere. Okay, but it looks like we're back, and it looks like it's been holding. So before we had the break, Dan had asked about dealing with staff when we had those had the problems where people were calling. So the staff would fill out evaluation forms after the event, and if there were any problems there, it's like, were there any comments or anything that we should know about in case there's a call? And in our training we talked about what those would be, And occasionally there was like, oh yeah, I mispronounced the bride's name and or whatever it is. So that way, if I get the bride calling and say, yeah, John, or just really, we just can't get over this, your DJ mispronounced the bride's name, and she did it all night long, and we just really, we were expecting a professional service and such. It was nice when I knew a little bit before they called, because then I can say, I just was looking at the notes of this, and I feel horrible, and the DJ feels horrible because that it's certainly not our intent. Our intent isn't to, but we're human and we make mistakes and such, and however you'd handle that. So there were problems, and occasionally there were situations in which that we did refund money. We were multi from 1993 to about 2000. I would say good 20 years. And during that time, I think we refunded maybe 4 times, 5 times at most. It just wasn't something we did. Were there problems? Yes. There were situations where something had happened. And I did have a couple of people who were like, we want all of our money back. And you just knew that there was an issue on their part. And they were looking for any little thing to basically say, oh, it ruined our whole day. Yeah, because we didn't have the we're going to leave bad reviews for you. That didn't exist at that time. So we didn't have the situation where Jimmy or somebody made reference to that. But we were able to handle it. And yeah, they would say, oh, we're going to tell all of our friends that, you were a bad DJ. Okay, go ahead. I'm okay. It's like I've got a lot of people who love what we do. A situation happened, and I can appreciate that what had happened, and it was just a bad situation. One of which, a venue, the electricity would not hold the DJ's sound system because they had a coffee pot on it. And now that we're talking about it, it was not the DJ's fault. The DJ, she had no idea of what was going on. It would just shut off. It'd get started and would go for a little while, another 15, 20 minutes, and then the coffee pot would be plugged back in to make another pot. She'd lose all night long while they were making coffee. Well, your DJ was having problems with electricity. How would we have known until we talked to the venue later? But so yeah, there's ways to handle it. I think today, as what Jimmy said, it's really a different world. I think when it comes to handling the afterwards, the customers' complaints, the Monday morning complaints, it's just so much different.
And I think exactly as you've got to look through what they're saying. Like, if they're coming at you immediately with the full refund, request, what was it that you did? Like, how off was the night? Like, what, did you really ruin the night? Because that's kind of what they're almost saying. And yeah, you do have to realize that they could come at you and leave a negative review. I mean, I had that happen. The difference was they actually owed me for an extra hour that we ended up going, and I ended up, and then she tried to like finagle, and I was like, you know what, it's just not worth it for what would have been the hour charge.
Right.
And it was just one of those things. And when I found out afterwards, it was also one of those where I didn't truly vet my client. Like, I didn't go through the process that I would typically go through, to the point that, I met to like talk with her, and she, like, within 5 minutes was like, okay, here's my money for the deposit, like cash in hand. And it was like, we just started talking, and okay, sure. Okay. And so sometimes, you don't really get to establish some of those moments. That's one of the reasons why I've often talked of, get to know your clients, because here's the other thing. Who's more likely to leave a negative review on a page where somebody else can see? A friend or a stranger?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah. 100% is going to be a stranger, and the 100% of the friend's going to be the one that's going to email you privately and be like, hey, I got this. I want you to know about it. This is what happened. Not really happy. And you have ability to kind of take care of it behind the scenes. Maybe they just want you to acknowledge it, or like I said before, or maybe it's just a matter of they just want to bring it to your attention. Like, hey, by the way, we didn't mention it that night. We didn't really think it was a big deal. But then afterwards, the more we thought about it, the more we're like, that kind of irked us a little bit. We just kind of wanted you to be aware.
Right.
I would also say, like, think about this standpoint. When it comes to reviews on being left, no bride really wants to admit that their wedding wasn't the best ever. I mean, think about it. Like who wants to go on record and say, yeah, my wedding sucked. Like, maybe like 10 years down the road when they're getting ready for their next marriage. But at the marriage at the moment, they don't want to say that. So you have to have screwed up for them to really want to admit that your hand in their night was bad. Unless and granted, I know there's exceptions. Okay. But I would say majority of the brides out there, when they want to leave the review, they want to talk about how great it is, or they're just not going to talk about it online. Like that would be the thing. Like I'd be more concerned about a bride who doesn't really want to leave anything. Like, hey, would you leave a review for me? Yeah, absolutely. We'd love to do it for you. And then like you send them the message, you don't hear anything. A couple weeks later, you don't hear anything. They just kind of ghost. It's like, hey, you ghosted me after the event. Like, maybe time to critique myself.
Yeah.
And here's another thing that I would encourage, and this isn't quite the review aspect, but this is something that I've always struggled with because I feel like in some ways I'm hard on myself, but then when somebody else is hard on me too, it's like a double whammy.
Right.
To have evaluations and send them to your clients afterwards. Whether you're seeking a review or not, give an opportunity for them to, this is something we do for in-house. This is something I always want to be getting better, and let them critique you. But then that one you really have to like have a thick skin on, because when you're asking for an evaluation, good and bad, it's a good opportunity for them to like be honest. I had a bride who, it was very tough for me, but she's like, yeah, your uplighting was too expensive. Like she uplighting or whatever. And they didn't even use my uplighting. That was the thing that irked me. Like she didn't even use my uplighting. She just immediately said my uplighting was too expensive. And yeah, because I quoted her for a whole room, and what she wanted was 6 little ones just to go on the pillars that happened to be in the middle of the room.
Sure.
Well, and that was partially my fault. I didn't understand what she was looking for, but we never really fully got to that. So of course she thought mine was like overpriced. She wanted 6 lights, and I was quoting her for 30. And so that's the thing. And that's one of those pieces where you do, but you're going to learn so much. You're going to learn so much about what you did great and so much about what you did poorly, or at least didn't do up to the level that you want to do it at, by having those evaluations. And again, if you let them know, like, listen, this is just for in-house. I appreciate it. Maybe you give them something as a thank you after it's all said and done. Hey, here's dinner on me. While you're enjoying, fill this out. Or after it's all said and done, here's coffee. Here's here's money for a Starbucks card so you can go get coffee and fill this out. Whatever. But that will also help, because the better you are, the more likely those negative reviews are going to be fewer and far between, even if they're the ones that are completely out of your control, because you're also going to start thinking more forwardly of how could I prevent that from happening over here. One thing I want to mention, I saw pop up, I think while we were actually in pause for a little bit, Day mentioned, I apologized during dinner, and then at the end of the night, we were saying goodnight and brought it up again. And I didn't see that. I'm sure, I think he went before the story, but that's the part that really jumped out at me.
He missed one of the couples in the announcing of the wedding party, which is very easy to do as a person doing the bouncing back and forth, especially if they hand you the list. Hey, here's the program from the church. Can you use this? What? How about? Okay, sure. Because our order has changed.
Now this couple's with over here, and this one's over here.
Yeah.
By the way, Bobby got stuck at the airport, so he's not here.
Yeah, exactly.
Excuse me.
And it isn't Bobby, it's Boubet.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's pronounced Boubet. Oh, but it's spelled
the Cajun
Bobby.
spelling.
But there's a little...
Yeah, my printer didn't do that. But no, the thing that I would almost caution you a little bit, Day, with a situation like that, absolutely apologize during dinner. Don't hesitate because you screwed up. Don't hesitate to apologize. The thing that I would hesitate on is to bring it up again at the end of the night. And I'm guilty of that. Like, I did something and I felt horrible about it. I apologized in the moment. And then later on, I'm talking with them and I apologize again. The thing is, by that point of the night, whatever it was could be way back in their mind,
Yeah.
could be gone. And now their last thought of you is what you just put in their mind again.
You brought it right back to them.
You brought it right back to the forefront. So again, making sure that they're aware of what's going on, thank you, apologizing and everything else. And then now if they bring it up again, or, even whether it's jokingly or whatever, absolutely. But I wouldn't be the one to bring it up. Unless it's something real major and there's something you can do there. But
yeah, you had to continue to bring it up again. And then they're like, oh, that's right. You evil bad person. Oh no. Oh yeah. Dave mentioned that he brought it up at the end of the night, and there will be, I've had a couple of weddings that I have performed for, and you just knew that. I think it was a bride in one case. She was looking for something. She was looking for something to complain about. And she had gotten money back from the photographer the day of the wedding. I don't know how she managed to do that, but the photographer came up and he was just steamed. And he's like, this gal is like, she's looking for any excuse. She tried to get money back from the venue because their food wasn't done right. And she's like, I want money back on this. I mean, during the night. Mm-hmm. And she was looking for anything she could find on me from the night. And she was complaining about something, and the groom really liked me because the groom was the one who was the one to push to hire me. And he basically kind of unceremoniously told her to shut up. So there are just some people out there who are going to be there to cause trouble, because that's just how they function, like it or not.
Yeah. So Dave, in that case, I 100% see where you're coming from. And if it's not that case, then just keep your mouth shut. Yeah. So for your example, I get it totally. If it's not your example, and it's the other one, just, kind of come alongside him, pretend it didn't, not pretend it didn't happen, apologize in the beginning, but just don't bring it up if you don't have to again.
Mm-hmm. That's for sure.
I love some of the conversations. Third wedding. Let's go for number 4.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was just thinking about it as they've been talking about that. Somebody mentioned that they've done 3 weddings for the same bride. I've done a groom twice and a bride twice. As far as not from the same weddings, but it was just there was a groom, the second wedding for one of my grooms years ago, and a second wedding for a bride. I don't think I have. Yeah, I haven't done the children of a couple yet. I've had close, but never quite.
I did, although I think it was the other way. I did the children first, and then the mom, I don't know if she widowed or whatever, and she remarried, and I happened to do that wedding. It may have been that direction. I've only ever had a bride that I've done both of her weddings, and she widowed. It was kind of weird in some aspects because it was like 3, maybe 4 years apart. Like he got sick real quick after they got married.
Oh my.
But yeah, you're doing something right. Even if the wedding is a complete failure, they decide to come back and have you again.
Yeah. That's
like, you did something right that night. That's like a review weight in gold. Yeah. He did my first wedding and that didn't work out so well, but he was the great thing that came from it. So we're going to do it again. And we wanted him again. So he came. So, and then of course, if you get the third and fourth time, you're lucky if they don't blame you. But
that was the groom. That was his exact statement was the only thing that from my first wedding that was good was my DJ. Okay. Good. Well, I guess I'll go with that. Well, good discussion, and thank you guys for being with us tonight. Danny's mentioning here on Facebook that doing the child of a couple 27 years ago, the couple, Danny did their wedding, and now he's doing their children's wedding. Excellent. That means, Danny, you're old like us. Yay. Funny. So
yeah, I'm waiting for that down the road. We'll see.
Yeah. It gets there. It'll get there.
Mm-hmm.
And then once we have, it's like, yeah, you did Grandma and Grandpa's thing, man. And it'll be like, okay, no. That would be bad.
One of the weirdest ones, we'll go on this tangent for a second. One of the weirdest ones I ever had is one I have coming up next year. So a few years ago, I used to do a bar slash college club. Okay. More bar than anything else. But one of our regulars that was in there all the time, so her daughter is getting married next year. And the daughter contacted me. Now I didn't know this girl had kids or anything like that. I knew she wasn't from the college. She was like one of the townies, as we would refer to them. And that wedding, the daughter calls me and we're talking. Actually, I think we were talking through instant messenger, or messenger rather. And I was like, that name's like it's different spelling. So I clicked and I saw the picture. And I'm like, man, I wonder if it's a sister, like to the one that was a regular.
Right.
And sent her a message. And I was talking to her. It's like, so is such and such your sister or something like that? Are you related to such and such? And she gets back to me. She goes, that's my mom. And I went, okay, we're going to leave it there. We're going to leave it there. Yeah. Not telling you the stories I know about your mom.
Oh, funny.
Yeah. It happens.
How time flies.
So what do you got coming up this week, John?
Let's see. Tomorrow night, there's questions that have been starting to come back about wireless microphones and frequency. And people are like, okay, so if I just see a wireless microphone that's in the right range, why can't I buy that and use it? It's not that simple. As much as we'd like to think it is, that any wireless microphone in the approved range will work in your market, it doesn't always work that way. So tomorrow night on Tuesday with Ben Stowe, Ben is going to give us some hypothetical situations of locations where a microphone that would work for me may not work for Dan, and why that is. So we're going to dig into that a little bit more and talk about that, where they're all in the frequency range that is legal for us, but they may not work for us. So that's going to be our first show. And then, shoot. What was going on with Brian? And I can find it here.
Because Brian and Jay doing
Brian
the
and Jay, we actually had a really good. We had another good topic that we were going to have those guys jump into. Yes, we're going to talk about that. If you guys are on Facebook and such, and you have seen a ton of our DJ friends who have just disappeared between Facebook and Instagram. They were there, they were doing things, and all of a sudden they're just not there anymore. And we're going to dig into it a little bit tomorrow night of where some of these DJs have gone, what is happening to the mobile DJ and the club DJ industry that we knew, this circle of people, because you've noticed some of them aren't there. And there's different stories, and we're going to kind of dig into a few of those, of the where and the why. And that'll be our second show tomorrow night.
Very cool.
Then in 2 weeks... roughly, I think 2 weeks from tonight, we kick off the virtual expo. And we're getting all the seminars are coming in. We have had a couple of them recorded already, and they're all going to come in, and we're going to have basically 2 nights of educational content for you guys out there. And you can go to djntv.com/virtual expo. I think it's virtual expo. I don't think it's 2020. I think it's just djntv.com/virtual expo. That commercial that ran earlier had the URL. But you guys can go check that out, and we'll be putting more information about that as we're getting closer to that. Or just go out to djntvtraining.com, and there's a big link right at the top in the menu.
Nope, you need 2020.
Oh, you do need 2020. Okay, so yep. Virtual Expo 2020. And you guys can check that out, and then it'll pop you out to the page, and you can find out more information and be part of that in 2 weeks. Chill Room has changed, by the way. Zoom changed some things where you cannot jump into, and for any of you who use Zoom, you cannot just jump into a meeting. If I share a link with you to jump into the meeting, I either have to approve you before you come into the meeting, or it has to be set up with a passcode. So it isn't just a click and go. Now, for the Chill Room, we've set it up as for a passcode. So you'll type in djntv.com/chill, and then it'll ask you for a passcode, and it's lowercase DJNTV. And then you can get in. If you don't type in the lowercase DJNTV, if it's uppercase, you won't get in. If you don't type anything, you won't get in. So passcode is lowercase DJNTV. Everyone that's kind of involved with that will have that information, and Jimmy's going to get a graphic, and we're going to circulate that. But Zoom changed some things, and this is one of those changes where you either are doing it passcode, or you have to be approved by the meeting host. And for the Chill Room, it just doesn't work to do it that way. So the passcode is our way. So
interesting.
Yeah.
That explains so much, because I was wondering why when I click to get in. You weren't letting me in.
Exactly. Yeah, that's been kind of a you've got to do an update of your Zoom. It'll probably get to a point here where it's going to ask you if you guys haven't updated your Zoom. It will say you need to update or you won't get anywhere. And then, Dave, update your Zoom and it should work now with that passcode. And again, it'll pop up a thing, lowercase DJ and TV.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, that's going to be going on pretty much as soon as we get out of here. So you can head over there and check that out and hang out, talk, have some fun, do a one-chip challenge, whatever happens to be the case. But thank you very much for taking some time out of your Monday night to join John and I. Hopefully you got some tips. Again, I hope none of you ever have to dealing with a negative response, whether it's in person or whether it's on a site somewhere that you have to respond to. But in the event that it does, at least you have maybe a couple tools that you can use just to be prepared and just to make sure you're ready to go and to avoid any potential disaster.
For sure.
But have a great night. We'll see you next time.
Good night, everybody.
Bye.